Hand binding. Some people absolutely love doing this part of their quilt. Some people not so much. I want to show you how I do hand finished binding. I use what's called a ladder stitch, and to do this, if you are planning on hand binding your quilt, when you do your binding, I would not press it. You can see my binding here is folded in half, but it doesn't have a sharp edge because I have not pressed this in half, so that I still have that rounded fold. This does help when you're doing hand binding. So I have here my nice hand bound, hand stitched down binding, and I'll show you what I do. I do what is called a ladder stitch, and that is simply, if I get my project closer to the camera for you, we are going to use our needle and we're going to take at the fold about 4 mils out of the binding, and then immediately the same amount from the backing. So you can see here on my needle I have that much of the binding fabric and then about the same amount of backing fabric. Pull it through just a little bit. You can pull through each stitch all the way if you want to, or you can get 2 or 3 on your in a row and then pull all the way through. So again, at the fold I'm taking a bite of the binding fabric and then the backing fabric. This one I'm going to pull both stitches all the way through. I'll remove that pin at this point. So this is called a ladder stitch because we're going up, across and up. So you can think of the across as the rungs of the ladder. Now don't pull too tight because you can gather the side of your quilt, of your binding, and you don't want that. Take a bite of the binding fabric and then of the backing fabric. That one's a little bit big, we can just shorten that backing. Now I only work with about 3 pins when I'm doing binding. I have the pins in the side here. You saw me take this one out earlier, and all I do is when I've stitched this section, I'll just pin the next section and keep going. That way I don't have a huge amount of pins to keep track of while I'm hand stitching my project, especially if you're sitting in your lounge. You can perhaps lose them, which is okay for you, might not be so much fun for the next person who sits there. So that is as simple as it gets. That is ladder stitch for hand finishing your binding on your projects. Have fun, everyone. When I'm doing hand binding, I do actually stitch the mitre down at the corner. So I have come along here stitching. I will have created and pinned my mitre already. I will pin this corner, then you can see just here I have stitched the mitre down. So I will come up in here and then, as well, disguising it as well as I can, I will go back through, come back down to this corner and continue along this side. So I have put a stitch, not quite halfway on this one, up the mitre to secure the corner.